Excellency. With your permission, Your Excellency, will remain standing and will start with two anthems, starting with the Kenya National Anthem, followed by the AU Anthem. The anthems. Let us kindly take our seats. Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, Honorable Alice Wahome, Cabinet Secretary for Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, all Cabinet Secretaries present, Honorable Johnson Sakaja, Governor, Nairobi County, Mr. Moses Vilakatie, AU Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy and Sustainable Environment, Anna Claudia Roseback, Executive Director, UN Habitat, Anar Guliyev, the Chairperson, State Committee for Urban Planning and Architecture, Themio Abib, Managing Director, Shelter Afrique Development Bank, all visiting ministers from various parts of Africa and Azerbaijan, all principal secretaries present, led by Charles Maura Hinga, Principal Secretary for State Department of Housing, all distinguished and invited guests. Your Excellency, sir, to start us off, we invite all our guests and all of you to experience with us an artistic production comprising of cultural, contemporary, and pop sounds of Kenya, alongside scenic sights of Kenya that enhance the theme of this forum. The piece of art is put together by Kenyan youth. Please journey with us and let's put our hands together as we welcome our first presentation of entertainment to take us through the journey of Kenya and of Africa. Karibu.
ndege wako na mahali pa kuenda jioni, wanyama wa porini, jua likitua pangoni, samaki wa majini wana makao baharini, wako mpangoni. Na kuna Mkenya hana nyumba mahali, na zile ziko hawezi kumudu bei ghali, analilia serikali, ategemea serikali.
Tuanzeni kujenga, watoto wetu wasikose mahali pa kwenda. Chukua mawe na simiti, weka kwa mabega. Tunajenga, tunajenga.
Kukinyesha tusinyeshewe, tuwe salama. Serikali kaingilia, tapunguza gharama. The day is finally here, tunahama. Finally, usawa kwa wote. Hata yule mapato ni duni, malazi yopata. Tujenge, sisi wana Kenya tujijenga.
Tuanzeni kujenga, watoto wetu wasikose mahali pa kwenda. Chukua mawe na simiti, weka kwa mabega. Tunajenga, tunajenga.
The journey starts with you and with me. Freedom is here today.
Mimi na wewe ndio wenye nchi, tujenge pamoja.
Tuanzeni kujenga, watoto wetu wasikose mahali pa kwenda. Chukua mawe na simiti, weka kwa mabega.
Tunajenga,
Tunajenga, tuanzeni kujenga, watoto wetu wasikose mahali pa kwenda. Chukua mawe na simiti, weka kwa mabega. Tunajenga, tunajenga. Tuanzeni kujenga, watoto wetu wasikose mahali pa kwenda. Chukua mawe na simiti, weka kwa mabega. Tunajenga, tunajenga.
Another round of applause to our wonderful youth as they say tunajenga, adequate housing for all. Another round of applause as they exit the stage. Thank you very much and welcome to Kenya. Your Excellency, sir, with your permission, allow me at this point to invite the Principal Secretary for the State Department of Housing, Mr. Charles Mwaura Hinga, to come and run this session. I'd encourage us to welcome him with a warm clap. Karibu sana, Bwana Hinga. Karibu.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, honorable ministers and all dignitaries here present, welcome to Nairobi. Your Excellency, we gather here today at a time when this country is experiencing a transformation of a lifetime. We have ministers that have come here today and are eager to hear and to listen, because the issue of urbanization is in everyone's lips. Almost every government out there, they are looking for votes. They have the issue of housing as one of the manifesto issues. We have synonymous issues, Your Excellency. Number one, we are all urbanizing very fast. Number two, Africa has a very high youthful population. Our economies are not creating jobs fast enough. Our urban areas are characterized by very expensive land. And we have very high levels of informality. And yet, in the midst of all those challenges, this country, a small country in the eastern coast of Africa, with little or no natural resources, has yet again shown the way on how to move from talk to action. Your Excellency, this is the most important segment, and everybody is eager to know how did you do it. And so, without further ado, I would like to invite the Managing Director of Shelter Afrique Development Bank, Mr. Habib Han, to come and make his opening remarks, because, Your Excellency, yesterday we agreed that we will get out of here with a very clear focus plan on how we are going to fund the urban agenda. Thank you very much, Habib Han.
Your Excellency, President William Samoei Ruto, distinguished ministers, principal secretaries, ambassadors, heads of delegations. Your Excellency, Kenya is a regional hub for urban investment and innovation, particularly in housing this week. We all know Africa faces a $1.4 trillion housing gap. And forums like this bring together governments, financiers, the private sector to unlock solutions. Your Excellency, we have delegations from all over Africa, all shareholders and members of Shelter Afrique Development Bank, which you are graciously hosting here in Nairobi for the past 44 years, since 1982. So it's a privilege to be standing here this morning, Your Excellency, to welcome all our delegates from all over Africa in the middle of this African Urban Forum. Kenya is now the benchmark for affordable housing. Thanks to your leadership, Your Excellency. When I arrived here in Nairobi for the first time in 2016, I saw how Nairobi and Kenya looked like. And I moved out to Asia and came back again in 2023. So when I arrived in January 2023, Your Excellency, I heard you say many times that Kenya will become a construction site. Ladies and gentlemen, today, Kenya is a construction site. I've been to many places across the country, Your Excellency. I've been to Nanyuki, to Mukuru here in Nairobi. The governor is in the room. Nyeri, Nakuru, Kisumu, Homa Bay, where I actually started in January when we were there together to do the first inauguration of the first affordable housing program, which is a flagship today in Kenya, in Homa Bay. Kisumu, Eldoret, Machakos, Mombasa, Kakamega, Mandera, up north, Lamu. I've seen the country is under construction, Your Excellency, and this is not talks, this is action, this is results on the ground. Mr. President, under your leadership, you have giants at the Department of Housing. You just heard from my great brother and friend, PS Charles Hinga, who has been really championing the affordable housing agenda on the ground as the architect and the engineer, supported very strongly by the leadership of CS Alice Wahome, who's been at the helm of this institution for some time. Your Excellency, it is an honor again today to address you here and formally at the formal opening of this Africa Urban Forum in Nairobi, a city that reflects both the energy and the urgency of Africa's urban transformation. Across the continent, a profound shift is underway. Africa is urbanizing faster than any region in the world. Every year, millions of people move to cities seeking opportunity, livelihoods, and dignity. Our cities are therefore not only growing, they are becoming the primary stage on which Africa's development will unfold. But urbanization is not automatic progress. It must be designed, financed, and governed deliberately. Without investment, cities strain under the pressure of growth, housing shortages deepen, infrastructure gaps widen, informality expand. Policies and the right partnerships, cities can become powerful engines of prosperity and resilience. This is why the Africa Urban Forum matters. When leaders gathered for the inaugural forum in Addis Ababa in 2024, and I'm glad to see the minister in the room, declarations recognize that addressing Africa's housing and urban challenges requires strong financial institutions capable of mobilizing long-term capital. Specifically, Article 3.4 of the Addis Ababa Declaration calls on development banks, particularly Shelter Afrique Development Bank, to anchor the mobilization of financial resources from domestic and international sources to bridge the housing gap and urban development. At Shelter Afrique Development Bank, Your Excellency, we see this not merely as recognition, but a responsibility, a big responsibility. We are working with partners across the global financial ecosystem and the new African financial architecture under the leadership of the African Development Bank. We are also working with partners such as Badir, Afrexim Bank, the World Bank, the International Finance Corporation, IFC, DBSA, and other institutions to mobilize capital, strengthen project preparation, and unlock multi-billion-dollar bankable investment pipelines for African cities. But the scale of Africa's urban transformation demands more than financing alone. It requires, across the entire urban ecosystem, collaboration. National governments shaping policies, cities planning growth, development banks structuring finance, private investors deploying capital, innovators introducing new technologies, communities shaping the spaces in which they live. This forum represents, Excellency, that convergence. Over the coming days, discussions will explore and have explored, starting yesterday, how to strengthen municipal finance, develop capital market solutions, expand blended finance mechanisms, and unlock scalable investment opportunities that can accelerate housing delivery and urban infrastructure across the continent. But ultimately, the value of this forum will not be measured by the quality of our discussions here. It will be measured by the partnerships we build and the investments we mobilize. Because Africa's urban future will not be written in declarations alone. It will be written in the homes that are built, in the infrastructure that connects communities, and in the cities that give millions of Africans the opportunity to thrive. Let us therefore approach this forum with bold ideas, practical solutions, and the shared commitment to action. let us ensure that Africa's urbanization becomes not a challenge to manage, but an opportunity to seize. And let us remember that behind every project and every investment lies something profoundly human, a family seeking stability, a young person pursuing opportunities, and a community building its future. It is with this spirit that I'm honored to join in welcoming all our member countries of Shelter Africa Development Bank from all over Africa, West, Central, North, Southern, Eastern Africa, to this very innovative African Urban Forum, which for the first time would showcase, starting today, what we call the deal room, the African Urban Forum deal room, where transactions, investments will happen with many investors in the room and innovative projects showcased for investment. And this will be ongoing going forward. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Another round of applause for Habib Han. 24 years ago, the world gathered here in Nairobi for the inaugural World Urban Forum. Later, next month, the world gathers again in Azerbaijan. And Your Excellency, I'd like now to invite His Excellency Anar Guliyev, the chairperson of the State Committee for Urban Planning and Architecture of the Republic of Azerbaijan and National Coordinator for the World Urban Forum. You can come to this microphone, please, if you don't mind. Wolf, number 13. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Excellency Dr. William Samuel Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Excellency Mr. Moses Vilakati, Commissioner of the African Union, Honorable Ministers, Madame Ana Claudia Rosbach, Executive Director of UN Habitat, esteemed delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by expressing my sincere appreciation to His Excellency President Ruto, the Government of Kenya, as well as to the African Union and UN Habitat for the leadership in bringing together governments, development partners, and other stakeholders. The second African Urban Forum has been made possible by the vision and dedication of partners advocating the global urban agenda. Kenya is certainly one of the most prominent champions of sustainable city planning and development. It was here in Nairobi in 2002 that the very first World Urban Forum took place, laying the foundation for what has become the world's most important platform for urban dialogue. Kenya is home to UN Habitat, and this forum taking place in Nairobi builds on the country's tangible initiatives aimed at improving living conditions of citizens through large-scale housing and infrastructure development projects. I have had chance of seeing some of them. They are really impressive. We know from our own experience how valuable such forums are. Azerbaijan was the first country in our part of the world to organize National Urban Forum in 2022. Practical value of that forum has inspired continuity of the urban dialogue, turning it into a regional one, and ultimately driving our decisions to nominate Baku as the host of the 13th World Urban Forum. I'm truly thrilled to see excellent progress on the urban agenda in Africa. I would like to congratulate the African Union for its leadership. African Urban Forum, premiered in Ethiopia in 2024, has already positioned itself as an important and influential platform for advancing dialogue and cooperation on sustainable urban development across the continent. It demonstrates Africa's growing determination to shape the future of its cities. Statements by Excellency Ministers made yesterday are driven by strong ownership and resolve to produce tangible results through practical solutions. This is exactly what we want the outcomes of the World Urban Forum in Baku next month to be: practical and action-oriented. Speaking of synergy, the theme of the second Africa Urban Forum, adequate housing for all, advancing socio-economic and environmental transformation towards the realization of Agenda 2063, is naturally intertwined with the theme of the 13th World Urban Forum, housing the world, safe and resilient cities and communities. Housing is more than shelter. It is a foundation for stability, dignity, and economic opportunity. It drives economic growth that improves people's everyday life strengthens the social cohesion within and among the communities. We live in a time of complex challenges. Across the world, cities are experiencing growing pressure from rapid urbanization, the expansion of informal settlements, limited access to adequate affordable housing, and the increasing impact of climate-related risks and other emergencies. Responding to these challenges requires more than technical solution. It calls for visionary urban planning, sustained investment, and people-centered policies. It also requires stronger partnership at the national, regional, and global levels. Having underlined the prominent role of Kenya and African Union, I feel obliged to also emphasize steadfast role of UN Habitat. Being the host of the 13th session of World Urban Forum, my country is pleased to work with such a reliable and professional counterpart. So I suspect this is at least partially defined by the famous Nairobi spirit. Azerbaijan attaches great importance to the strengthening partnership with countries of the continent, with Africa Urban Forum being one of the important avenues of this cooperation. Our commitment to the housing and urban development agenda draws from our own experience. Following the liberation of its territories in 2020, under the strategic vision of leadership of His Excellency Ilham Aliyev, President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, our country launched the large-scale Great Return program in its Karabakh and East Zangezur regions. This is a comprehensive effort not just to rebuild cities and villages, but to bring the life back to what was a barren desert only 5 years ago. Most importantly, this is also a major contribution to lasting peace and regional partnership, including with Armenia. Successful post-conflict reconstruction is probably more important today than ever before. We believe our experience can contribute meaningfully to similar processes to house the world through safe and resilient cities and communities. The very key theme of WUF 13 I have mentioned earlier. The second Africa Urban Forum is the largest international event in the sector organized ahead of WUF 13 this year. In fact, timing could not be any better, as we will be welcoming the WUF 13 participants to Baku in a bit more than a month. We are encouraged by strong engagement of African stakeholders. About 40 African participants, government, civil society and private sector have already registered for the Urban Expo, and about 50 ministers, deputy ministers, ambassadors, mayors and local government representatives have confirmed their attendance, with total number of registered participants having already exceeded 16,000. Housing and urban resilience will be at the center of the forum's program through high-level dialogues, thematic discussions, and special sessions. The forum will feature more than 40 main sessions, over 350 partner-led events, and 35,000 square meter urban expo. For the first time in the history of the World Urban Forums, Azerbaijan has initiated a high-level leaders meeting, reflecting our strong political commitment to the global development agenda. We are honored that a number of heads of states have confirmed their attendance, including many from Africa. It goes without saying, we very much count on the most active, valuable contribution of our Kenyan partners, an active engagement of the African Union. Special session Africa Affordable Housing Compact will take place during the WUF 13. The session will explore financing models and partnerships to accelerate the delivery of sustainable, scalable housing solutions across the continent. The government of Azerbaijan will also organize a special session, Cities at the Heart of Connectivity, Urban Reconstruction and Regional Cooperation, highlighting how urban reconstruction can contribute to broader regional connectivity and cooperation, with cities playing a central role in this process. Let me underline, while well aware of the importance of such deep intellectual discussion, we are also determined to ensure practical value of the above deliberations. We cannot afford those discussions to remain discussions only, no matter how rich and well-intended. We believe WUF 13 presents important opportunities for Africa to engage actively and showcase its experience. Having hosted COP29, Azerbaijan is availing itself of existing and building new partnerships and spearheading climate change action, including through urban agenda. This will be among priorities of the WUF 13 as we look to contribute to COP31 in Turkey. Let me also mention that we have pleasure of co-chairing the open-ended expert working group on adequate housing for all, along with our friends from Somalia. I have mentioned the special role of Kenya plays in urban agenda. But let us not forget, the country's capital is also home to the UN Environment Agency, UNEP. We are pleased to announce the launch of Baku Urban Award during WUF 13, an initiative that will recognize transformative achievements in housing and urban development worldwide. We encourage cities, institutions, and organizations from across this continent to consider this an opportunity to showcase your innovative solutions. Urbanization is one of the defining transformations of our century. The discussions taking place here in Nairobi extend beyond this hall. They are of great importance for discussions in Baku. Those discussions, in their turn, will shape direction of the global urban agenda for years ahead. As we all know, the battle for SDGs will be won or lost in the cities. Losing is not an option. However, we can win only together. Let us join our efforts. I invite each and every one of you to join us next month at WUF 13. The strong presence and active contributions of African states, local governments and communities will elevate the discussions and strengthen the outcomes. I wish the Second African Urban Forum every success and productive deliberation. I extend my sincere wishes for continued prosperity, well-being and resilience to the people of Kenya, thanking them for their hospitality, and to all the nations of Africa. I look forward to welcoming you in Baku. Asante sana, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, in one of the many situation rooms that we've had in the run-up to this agenda of affordable housing, you one day asked us the question, how is it that we normalized mediocrity over many years? And you asked this in relation to Nairobi. The name Nairobi means a place of cool waters. And how did the place of cool waters turn into the waters became sewage? And Your Excellency, you asked, how is it that Nairobi hosts 2 UN bodies, and yet we became okay with that level of mediocrity? Next speaker, Your Excellency, is Her Excellency Anna Claudia Rosbach, the UN Habitat Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Habitat. You can come here. We've had a lot of collaboration with them, especially on the issues of the Nairobi rivers. They sit in our advisory committee, and Your Excellency, we are fixing the rivers. Thank you.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency Moses Vilakati, AU Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy and Sustainable Environment, my sister, Honorable Secretary, Cabinet Secretary Alice Wahom, Honorable Anar Guliyev, Chairperson, State Committee for Urban Planning and Architecture, National Coordinator for WUF 13, my sister, Minister Shaltu from Ethiopia, our host, African Urban Forum #1, our host here, Governor Sakaja in Nairobi, honorable ministers, governors, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, Jumbo. It's an honor to join you here in Nairobi for the second African Urban Forum, at a moment when Africa's urban future and transformation is not just a continental priority, but it is a global one. Let me begin by extending our profound gratitude to our hosts, the government of Kenya, for hosting UN Habitat and for hosting us today, and commending the African Union Commission for their continued leadership in convening this continental forum for advancing Africa's urban agenda. Converging again after the first Addis Ababa African Union Forum in 2024, where participants adopted the African Urban Forum Declaration on Sustainable Urbanization for Africa's Structural Transformation, the second African Urban Forum in Nairobi shines the spotlight towards Africa's urbanization, rapid urbanization, happening at unprecedented scale. Let us reflect how far we have come from Habitat 1, Habitat 2, when the continent was still perceived as predominantly rural, to forging the common Africa position for Habitat 3, demonstrated through a unified continental voice in Quito, Ecuador. There, Africa negotiated the new urban agenda, not as 54 divergent entities, but as one bloc, one voice. Today, the story has progressed profoundly. The continent voice is much stronger, it's clear, and more essential than ever. Our theme is adequate housing for all, advancing social, economic, and environmental transformation towards the realization of Agenda 2063. It couldn't be more timely. Africa is the world's fastest urbanizing region, with cities growing at an average annual rate of 3.5%. This is a benchmark in human history. And by 2050, 6 out of 10 Africans will live in urban areas. 80% of Africa's population is going to be in cities. And over 60% of Africa's total population is under the age of 25. Urban areas are already generating nearly 60% of Africa's GDP. But at the same time, 60% of people are lacking adequate shelter. So this is not merely a demographic shift or a shelter issue, but it is a systemic crisis rooted in the limited access to land, commodification of housing, compounded threats from impacts of climate change, instability, and urban vulnerabilities. You mentioned a few: poverty and inequality at the bottom line. Across Africa, this growth is not uniform. While rural to urban migration is a factor, much of Africa's urban growth is now gradually coming from within cities themselves. We are witnessing the shift in growth. It's occurring primarily in the secondary and intermediary cities. The rapid urbanization process in Africa, while challenging, also offers powerful opportunities to expand access to decent, affordable housing, service land, and basic services, thus accelerating economic growth and strengthening social cohesion. While cities continue to grow at accelerated rates, it creates the scale needed to justify and attract investments in infrastructure, housing, and essential amenities. Expanding transport networks, affordable housing, digital systems in cities opens the door to improved mobility, greater connectivity, and enhanced productivity. Across the continent, governments and partners are increasingly recognizing urbanization as a driver for inclusive development, enabling them to plan better, mobilize more resources, and implement reforms that make land, housing, and basic services more accessible. But let us reframe how we view housing. Housing is not only a social expenditure, a cost to be minimized, a deficit to be filled. It is the foundation infrastructure for societies, for job dignity, and socio-economic transformation. When we invest in adequate housing, we create construction industries that employ youth, we build resilience against climate shocks, and we provide stability upon which families and communities thrive. What this tells us is very simple. Africa's future is urban. Housing is at the front line of climate adaptation, but opportunities of that urban future should continuously be unlocked. We need to position urbanization and housing development among the highest priorities in our nations and continent. And I'm happy to note that our collaboration with the African Union has resulted in that. Together with UNECA and the African Union Commission, we came up with the harmonized implementation framework for the new urban agenda in Africa. This is a very strategic document that supports member states in the implementation of our global priorities in the continent. I would like to commend the work of the AU, especially the work of the Specialized Technical Committee on Public Service, Local Government, Urban Development, and Decentralization, chaired by my other sister, Honorable Justice, the Minister of Uganda. This committee plays a critical role, and through this committee, we have the African Urban Forum platform to be held every second year just before the World Urban Forum. The work and the service of the committee is commendable, and UN Habitat will always stand with the Commission in advancing the Africa Agenda for the Vision 2063, the Africa we want. At UN Habitat, our response is clear. Across Africa, UN Habitat is supporting over 40 countries with national urban policies, housing strategies, and planning systems. We are focusing on 3 core priorities: ending the global housing crisis, supporting climate resilient and inclusive cities, strengthening urban governance and finance systems. Globally, this year, 2026, marks a pivotal period for UN Habitat, 10 years after the new urban agenda approved in Quito, Ecuador. It's important that we together evaluate what are the gaps and chart the course for the remaining decade of the new urban agenda. This is also the year where we are looking in depth to what happened to SDG 11, especially SDG 11.1, featuring housing and informal settlements. And unfortunately, we are already seeing that the world is not on track to meet the 2030 agenda. To continuously support the member states in addressing the global housing crisis, the open-ended working group on housing, which was established in June 23 as a global platform to advance policy guidance, develop practical recommendations, and support countries in integrating housing systems, has over the last 1 year delivered concrete progress. Thank you, Kenya. Thank you, the government of France. We looked at social housing, informal settlements, finance, and land. Looking ahead for 2026, under the chairmanship of Somalia and Azerbaijan, we are going to look at land, integrated housing policies, and climate resilience. As embedded in our strategic plan for 26-29, I call on our partners to embrace 3 priorities. First, let us put housing and transformation of informal settlements at the center of development agendas. Second, let's strengthen our institutions and systems for transformative change. And third, let's learn from within Africa. Allow me to recognize Kenya's leadership role on the global housing stage, primarily through 2 complementary positions: as a co-chair of the open-ended working group on housing and as a global champion of the call for action on adequate housing for all. Together in 25 countries, through the high-level roundtable on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York last year, leading from the front, His Excellency President Ruto advanced a proposal for a coalition of global housing champions, a political platform for heads of states to advocate for inclusive housing policy and mobilize finance. His Excellency, Mr. President, I extend my warmest gratitude for the visible progress in urban transformation and the support you give to our mandate at UN Habitat. The outcomes of this second African Urban Forum will be directly connected to the World Urban Forum 13 to be hosted by our excellent, great partners, Azerbaijan, now in May in Baku, as it was shared. We expect Africa to be strongly there to showcase your leadership, to represent your solutions, and to influence global investments. Excellencies, this is not only a gathering. The Urban Housing Forum matters. We finish this presentation today just committing that UN Habitat stands ready to support Kenya, African Union, and all of you in the roadmap ahead through the urbanization process in Africa. Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, ED. Your Excellency, this event is co-hosted by UN Habitat, Africa Union, and the Government of Kenya. Allow me now to invite His Excellency Moses Vilakati, the AU Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, and Blue Economy, to come and make his brief remarks.
I understand what you mean. Your Excellency, Dr. William Samuel Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, and the host of the second Africa Urban Forum, honorable ministers present here, strategic partners, the private sector, and all protocols observed. It is a great honor and a privilege to join you today and address this August Assembly on the occasion of the opening session of the Second Africa Urban Forum here in Nairobi, which is dedicated to reflecting on the delivery of adequate housing for all as the continent advances socio-economic and environmental transformation towards the realization of Agenda 2063. Allow me to express the sincere appreciation of the African Union Commission to His Excellency President William Samuel Ruto, the government and the people of the Republic of Kenya for hosting this important continental gathering and for their exemplary leadership in advancing Africa's urban development and housing agenda. As we gather here to affirm the value of partnerships and cooperation and finding common solutions to shared problems, I wish to commend our long-standing partnerships with the United Nations Human Settlement Program, UN Habitat, and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, for their continued support in convening this continental gathering. Your Excellencies, honorable ministers, the African Urban Forum, AUF, as a brainchild of the African Union Commission, was established during the fourth ordinary session of the Special Technical Committee on Public Service, Local Government, Urban Development, and Decentralization, held in Cairo, Egypt, in August 2022. The forum was established in response to the growing recognition of Africa's rapid urbanization, its opportunities and challenges, and the need for continental platform to promote an inclusive and holistic approach to unlocking its full potential. The AUF has evolved from its inaugural session held in Addis Ababa in 2024 to becoming a vital multi-stakeholder platform for discussing key urban issues, linking the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, the new urban agenda, and the aspirations of Agenda 2063. The value, therefore, of this forum lies in its ability to provide a unique platform for political leadership, for policy dialogue and partnership, shaping Africa's urban future while strengthening the coordinated implementation of Agenda 2063. Beyond its technical component, the forum is an important political platform that brings together heads of states, ministers, local governments, and partners to reflect on how Africa's urban transformation can be guided by strong governance, inclusive development, and sustainable peace. Africa, ladies and gentlemen, is undergoing the world's fastest urban transition, with urbanization placing cities at the heart of national economic growth, social transformation, and regional integration. Equally, this rapid urbanization presents governance, infrastructure, climate, and peace, as well as security challenges that requires political leadership and coordinated continental action. The theme of this forum, adequate housing for all, advancing socio-economic and environmental transformation towards the realization of Agenda 2063, speaks directly to these development imperatives. When we look at from an African Union's perspective, we realize that Adequate housing is a matter of dignity and human rights. It is also a foundation for economic productivity. It is also essential for social stability and peace. And it is also central to sustainable and inclusive urban development. Housing and urban development, therefore, represent a strategic pillar for achieving Agenda 2063. We also have interconnected themes. These include urban infrastructure and urban development, which are all essential for economic growth, regional integration, accessibility and mobility, as well as service delivery investments. We also need to look at energy transformation as well as strengthen productivity to support the implementation of the African Union's infrastructure. There is also the issue of resilience, building, and sustainable urban development, which are critical in the context of climate change and environmental pressures. But also, we need to be looking at smart cities, science, technology, and innovation, which are transforming urban governance and economic development through digital systems, data-driven planning, as well as enhanced transparency. Yet, we also need to be innovative, look at innovative financing to make sure that our dreams can be realized. But of importance is to make sure that we also look at transforming our informal settlements, which remain a priority for social inclusion as well as human dignity. Lastly, we need to be looking at urban migration and displacements, which requires coordinated governance and policy responses. Cities are increasingly hosting displaced populations and migrants, making urban areas central to humanitarian response, social integration. These priorities are closely linked to our broader thinking as the African Union's work program on decentralization, local governance, and urban development. The theme for this forum, therefore, aligns strongly with the African theme of the year 2026 on water and sanitation, which recognizes water as a strategic resource for human security, for public health, as well as for sustainable development. It is our collective responsibility, therefore, to take stock of the progress that has been made by the African Union regional economic communities, our national governments and local communities in implementing the commitments which were adopted during the inaugural inaugural African Urban Forum in 2024. We must now accelerate our efforts to translate these commitments into concrete actions. So I look forward to this meeting coming up with concrete actions so that we can do the same in about 2 years' time. But one thing that I would like to emphasize, Your Excellency, is that working hand in hand with our strategic partners, we have established the Aqinile Partnership. Aqinile means strong, which is a unique partnership formed by the AUC, the UNDP, the UN Habitat, and UNEP to jointly address disaster risks across the continent. The development also of the Africa Common Position and Continental Agenda, raising advocacy for global economic and continental fora, it becomes very, very important also as we look at the housing issue. We think that the success of the Agenda 2063 lies in better livelihoods, and that can only be done through better housing for all. Therefore, the expected outcomes of this forum, together with the Nairobi Declaration on Housing, should reflect Africa's collective commitments to adequate housing, sustainable urban development, strong local governance, climate resilience, and inclusive growth, which should reinforce the role of Africa's Urban Forum as a continental institutional platform. In closing, Your Excellency, African Union remains fully committed to working with member states and partners to support Africa's urban transformation and to advance Agenda 2063. Let us therefore work together to build inclusive inclusive, resilient, and peaceful African cities, ensuring adequate housing for all. I thank you. Siyabonga kakhulu, asante asante.
Siyabonga. Your Excellency, out of the 273,000 housing units under construction in Kenya, 98,000 of them are in construction in the capital city of Nairobi. It is my great pleasure now to invite the governor of Nairobi to come and make his very, very brief remarks.
Your Excellency, President William Ruto, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces of Kenya, Waziri Alice, AU Commissioner Moses Vilakati, ministers from across the continent. We're told we have more than 40, and we're really privileged as Nairobi to have you all here in our capital city. Anna Claudia Rosbach, my friend, and a big friend of Nairobi, whom we really appreciate. The chair of the State Committee of Uzbekistan, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of Parliament. We have the Committee of Housing that is present here, and they have done a great job. Everything that you see us talk about really needs great legislative grounding, and we really thank you for that. We've seen the members of Parliament from the Housing Committee, Mr. Anar, Guliyev, honorable delegates, my colleague governor, Anyang' Nyong'o, the governor of Kisumu, which is Kenya's third city. Governor Professor Anyang' Nyong'o is also the chair of the Committee on Urban Matters and Housing at the Council of Governors. Honorable delegates, I hope you had a good time yesterday. If you didn't, please see me after this. We welcomed you to enjoy Nairobi, and so I am sure you had a good time. But if you didn't, I'll be available. Your Excellency, yesterday we underscored the urgency of what we're dealing with. We spoke about the numbers. We saw the stark reality that we're faced with as a generation, the situations that we find ourselves in. We spoke about the fact that a lot of the challenges we're dealing with may not have been caused by ourselves. You know, we may not be the generation that polluted the rivers. We may not be the generation that caused informal settlements. But we agreed that the imperative ahead of us needs a certain kind of leadership. It needs bold leadership. It needs committed leadership. It needs proper planning, and it needs leaders who care. Your Excellency, the delegates today here, and many, may not know what our country has had to go through to achieve what we can proudly talk about today. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the boldest, bravest leaders who will go down in history as having set the tone for the urban future of this country is President William Samoei Ruto. President William Ruto decided and committed and had promised that we must change this narrative in our urban spaces. He was vilified, his politics was threatened, there were demonstrations, there were almost riots. People said that that is the end of his career. But President William Ruto said that if you want to lead the orchestra, you must turn your back on the crowd, and you must do what needs to be done. President William Ruto, on behalf of the people of Nairobi, we thank you, because we are giving dignity to people. We are giving real dignity to families, to women, to children, hope, even increasing their self-esteem. I want to tell you something, that is the kind of leadership that we require from all of us in all our countries. If we have 40 out of the 54 African countries represented here, with that same level of tenacity and focus, we can actually change the tide. What President Ruto did, because people asked him, don't you have a house yourself? Why are you thinking about those who don't have a house? Previous administrations had attempted to do this. And when there was a little whiff of resistance, their tails went in between their legs and said, oh, let's leave it. You have a house. Let's take care of our other issues that are less politically, risky. But President Ruto did or expressed what has been defined by Leo Tolstoy, sometimes attributed to Fyodor Dostoevsky, that if you feel pain, it is because you're alive. But if you feel somebody else's pain, it is because you're a human being. That personal suffering only points to mere existence, but empathy is what defines humanity. Many of the actions you're going to take, many of the actions we're discussing are not for yourselves or for your families, but are for those who may not be in this room, who cannot make a case for themselves. So I want to encourage all of you that you're not in Nairobi in vain. What you're doing is the work of God, I will call it that, because you're giving hope, you're giving dignity, and you're changing the course of generations to come. Part of what our president is leading us in doing in this city, and I'm very proud to be the governor of Nairobi. For a long time, and the PS has said, and I'm being very brief, the PS has said, the work we're doing on our rivers is historic. This city was founded on those 3 rivers. When it was founded in 1901, a letter was written to the UK saying that this is just a swamp. It will always flood. We're on floodplains. In 1906, there was a big plague in this city because of the floods. Today, we are changing the narrative of the rivers, which became where the informal settlements are. When it floods, those who are affected most in Nairobi are the poor and the destitute in informal settlements. But we committed, the president has committed more than 50 billion Kenya shillings. One of the interventions we're doing in sanitation is a 54-kilometer trunk sewer on both sides of the Nairobi River. 1.8 meters by 1.8 meters. I am 1.83 meters, so you can imagine the span of that sewer. It is going to cover the sewer demand for this city for 50 years. Isn't that being a visionary leader? I think our president needs some applause for that. On top of that, of course, there's the 200,000 units of housing and much more. The associated infrastructure, the jobs that have come with it. We have hundreds and thousands of our young people who today can wake up with dignity and confidence that they're going to a construction site, whether it is engineers, architects, masons, plumbers, etc., you name it. So we are seeing this transformation. I would like to finish by challenging my friend Habib. Habib has spoken about the deal rooms many times, and I'm glad we have mayors here and city leaders. And yesterday I threw a brief challenge. I didn't go much into it because I was just to speak briefly. Mostly cities are called to make welcoming remarks, not to talk about the crux of the matters. But these mayors and city leaders are the ones who grapple every day with the urban challenge on our continent. I think they deserve better recognition. And I've seen one of my predecessors, Mayor Joe Akech, when Nairobi had mayors back then. Let's appreciate him. We stand on the great work that many of you did many years ago, and we're building on it. And so, Bwana Habib, in those deal rooms, we're going to come into those deal rooms as cities. Because we know if we're not on the negotiating table, we're on the menu. And we have refused to be on the menu as cities and as subnational governments. We have bankable projects. Water and sewer provision in a city like Nairobi or Mombasa or Kisumu or Kampala is a bankable, investable project because people pay bills. Mass transit, because people must move from one place to another. We must sort out urban sprawl, is bankable. So it's not just for investors and the private sector, but also have a space for cities. So finally, delegates. I know I welcomed you yesterday, but today I want to give you an offer. Please take it and do 3 things. Number 1, after your meetings, please find any hotel in Nairobi, any restaurant, any place of recreation. Go in there. You can order ugali, which is a Kenyan dish, nyama choma. You can order pizza if you want. You can order, githeri. Have as much as you want. As much as you want. If anybody asks you, say Sakaja sent you. The governor of Nairobi. So the first thing is you're welcome. Number 2, find any restaurant and say, Governor Sakaja sent you. But number 3, pay your bill yourself. Because there's nothing for free in Nairobi. May God bless you and enjoy this forum.
Thank you very much, Governor Sakaja. To bring us to the end of this session, allow me to invite my boss, my cabinet secretary, Madam C.S. Wahome. Come on, let's give her a round of applause. She's done a remarkable job in organizing this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's give a clap to PS Hinga. He's the guy I ride on for implementation. Thank you. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, Your Excellency, AU Commissioner Moses Virakati, here on behalf of yourself and on behalf of the chairperson and the African Union, Your Excellency Anna Claudia Rosbach, ED of UN Habitat, together with Undersecretary General for the United Nations. Your Excellency, allow me to recognize in a special way also Anar, Guliyev, for purposes of his chairmanship for the World Urban Forum. We've made a bit of some promises there. Your Excellency, may I also recognize my sister Chatu. You know, I was sitting next to her, so I need to recognize her because AU, the Africa Urban Forum, started in Ethiopia, and they laid a firm foundation led by the African Union. I have my sister here, Deborah, the one in charge, CS Deborah, one in charge of environment and forest. I have many colleagues in this sector, excellencies, ministers. We have ambassadors. We have distinguished participants. We have Shelter Afrique that is ahead of the park in terms of that space, in terms of policy, now operating as a bank. We have, Your Excellency, ambassadors and high commissioners. I will leave it there, but I want to welcome Your Excellency. Help me to welcome His Excellency this morning to this opening session. His Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, is here to give us the opening keynote address. And that will be at a later date, at a later session. Your Excellency, the room is full. And I assure you, even yesterday, it was this full. We have exchanged great ideas. But one thing that came out, Your Excellency, is that we must move from boardrooms, we must move from halls, and we must consolidate our energy, our strength, and our ideas. With those remarks, Your Excellency, allow me to just say one or two things that as I address you on this second Africa Urban Forum here in Nairobi, at a moment when the question of housing and urban development has firmly moved to the center of Africa's development agenda. Allow me at the outset to recognize the leadership of His Excellency President William Ruto, who has been designated as the global champion for adequate housing by UN Habitat. Recognition that reflects not only Kenya's national commitment, but our own shared conviction that housing must be elevated at a global and continental priority. Your Excellency, across Africa, rapid urbanization is no longer a future prospect. It is our present reality. Yet, unlike previous global urban transitions, ours is unfolding under conditions of constraint, limited physical space, growing populations, climate change and vulnerability, significant infrastructure deficits. The list is long. This presents us with a dual reality. On the one hand, our cities are engines of growth, innovation, and youth employment. On the other hand, without deliberate and coordinated interventions, they risk becoming centers of exclusion and institutional centers of inclusion and vulnerability. It is within that context, Your Excellencies, that Kenya has made a deliberate and strategic policy choice to place housing as one of our priority areas in our national development agenda under the leadership of His Excellency. We have recognized that housing is not simply a sector. It is a system that connects land, infrastructure, finance, labor, and markets. A system that, when structured effectively, unlocks an economic activity across multiple value chains, going from construction, manufacturing, and also service delivery. The local enterprise, therefore, becomes a beneficiary, and such a system, when scaled up, is able to deliver both social outcomes and economic transformation. Excellencies, our approach to provision of adequate housing in Kenya is anchored on 3 key pillars. First, we have prioritized policy and institutional alignment, ensuring that housing delivery is coordinated through a whole of government approach that integrates planning, financing, and implementation. Indeed, our financing is a local solution. Second, we are advancing innovative financing mechanisms and leveraging public resources to crowd in private capital, structuring blended finance solutions, and creating predictable funding streams to support delivery of scale or at scale. Third, we are strengthening delivery systems and building institutional and technical capacity required to move from project by project implementation to program-based delivery, supported by partnership with the private sector and other stakeholders. Through this approach, we are not only delivering housing units, the figure now stands at close to 300,000, but are also building an ecosystem that supports job creation for our youth, strengthens local industries, and expands access to dignified living conditions for our citizens. Excellencies, while we are encouraged by the progress we are making, we are equally clear that no country can address housing challenges in isolation. It requires stronger partnerships between governments, development institutions, and financing partners. The private sector is a key player, and communities must not be left behind. As we therefore deliberate how to overcome these challenges, the next now 2 days, starting today, because yesterday is the first day, Kenya stands ready not only to share its experience, commitments, but also to learn from you, our brothers and sisters. We believe that solutions we are building together must be adaptable, scalable, and rooted in African realities. But my brothers and sisters, as countries, I want to tell you, for the success story for Kenya to reach where it has reached, it has taken the President of the Republic of Kenya to do the heavy lifting. And the heavy lifting is both social, economic, and political. We have had very strong support from the legislature, but the political class, for obvious reasons, unhealthy competition, has not been that supportive. And I mean the one outside the one government approach and the broad-based government. So, for you to go the road Kenya has gone, you need the highest political goodwill. And Your Excellency, Kenya is privileged to have you. The courage my governor in Nairobi has talked about is unparalleled. But that is something we can also share. His Excellency is not just a champion in Kenya. You have heard the platforms that he is leading, and we want to encourage you, Your Excellency, because this space is not new. It has been there, but the prominence it requires can only be given from the political platform that you stand, Your Excellency, with other member states, heads of states. And I'm therefore grateful as the Cabinet Secretary in this ministry to be able to host on your behalf, Your Excellency, the number of ministers, my colleagues who are here, and they have come, they came 2 days ahead. They have enjoyed part of Nairobi. They are yet to go to the rest of the spaces. Your Excellency, that gives us an insight to the interest in this discussion and discourse. And we therefore looking forward for another very good day today. Thank you for coming to the opening session. Your Excellency, we missed you yesterday, but we understand and appreciate making time. I will then ask Mike to help us with the next session, where Your Excellency will be possibly speaking from your heart. And I know, Your Excellency, this subject, and I'm lucky, Minister, because this subject, so my brothers, you can only maybe envy me, brothers and sisters, this subject has become a pet subject for the President of the Republic of Kenya. We can use him to propel the Africa continent with other heads of state as we move to World Urban Forum. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for Cabinet Secretary Alice Wahome. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, I believe all in this room believe that the future is urban. And Kenya has already embarked on the journey for adequate housing. So let us now trail our eyes on the screen as we see snippets of this journey.
Africa is not waiting. Africa is building. It is rising fast, bold, and undeniable.
This project before us here is the single largest housing intervention in Kenya's history. And I am so proud that it is happening in our time.
Across the continent, a transformation is underway. From the pulse of Nairobi, to the energy of Lagos, to the innovation shaping Kigali. A new urban story is being told.
Let us collectively look at the human aspect of housing as an equitable right for everyone.
Africa is designing for itself, because how Africa urbanizes will define how Africa lives.
Urbanization is generally associated with a high quality of life. When people are moving from rural areas to urban areas, they're coming in search of a high quality of life. But the inverse actually happens. When you come to the urban spaces, that's where you're going to find the most marginalized person, the urban poor.
We must be intentional. The African city of the future is walkable, green, youth-centered, and grounded in dignity and belonging.
Will cities divide or unite? Will growth exclude or empower? Will we build for survival or for prosperity?
Now is the moment to act. If this opportunity is lost, it will be for the bad of the people, right? And this will have an impact in terms of the overall development of the continent.
Like many African countries, Kenya is not waiting for permission. Every skyline rising is a signal. Every system built is a promise. Every innovation is a step toward a future.
The mindset changes, everything changes. Sai niko na kwangu, sisumbuliwi, usigongee mlango.
Famwe mpaka nilikuwa napika na mafuta ya koko. But hapa nimekuta gas.
Dignity also, it's kind of lifted up, not the same way while you are still in the slums.
We know that the future is urban, so we must manage these spaces so that we're able to coexist, ensure that we have proper transport systems. Top of all is ensure that there's some ownership so that they can be able to gain some dignity and feel like they're part of the life.
Adequate housing for all. It is not a slogan. It is the foundation of Africa's transformation. Because the future of Africa is not a distant dream. It is being built right now. Agenda 2063 is not a document. It is our aspiration. And in this defining moment, one question remains: who will shape it?
And the question remains, who will shape it? We'll now hear from His Excellency himself, but allow me to introduce our moderator for this session, Vivian Onano. She's an award-winning social entrepreneur and founder and director at a leading light initiative. Vivian continues to play a leading role in redefining Africa's growth and development through the direct engagement and inclusion of women and youth. Your Excellency, Vivian is a respected speaker who often speaks on global education, gender equality, youth empowerment, and international development. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, why don't we put our hands together as I welcome our moderator to now come and take up the next session. Karibu sana, Vivian. A round of applause, please. Welcome. Isn't she looking great? Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mike Gitonga, for the generous introduction. Your Excellencies, honorable ministers, distinguished guests, fellow youth leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. I need to feel the energy in the room. It is my honor to serve as the moderator for this high-level fireside conversation with His Excellency the President of Kenya, where we will delve into key lessons, best practices, and critical challenges in delivering adequate housing for all. Africa is undergoing the fastest urbanization globally, with urban populations growing at over 3.5% annually. By 2050, our urban population will double, from approximately 700 million to over 1.4 to 1.5 billion people. Nearly 65% of Africans will live in cities. We are not simply urbanizing. We are building the future economic engine of this continent. And yet, today, over 56% of urban Africans live in informal settlements. Cities already generate more than 75% of national income, yet remain underfinanced and underplanned. This is not just a housing deficit. It is a systems challenge. Land, finance, governance, and ultimately, delivery. Closing Africa's infrastructure gap alone requires $130 to $170 billion annually, while global systems hold over $400 trillion in capital, highlighting a fundamental mismatch between need and capital allocation. Housing is one of the most powerful economic multipliers we have. Every dollar invested can generate up to $2.5 in economic activity, contribute up to 5.8% of GDP, and create up to 5 jobs per unit. So the question is simple. What will it take to deliver at scale? And who will take that responsibility? To respond to these critical questions, I would like to welcome to the stage a leader who has made affordable housing for all his national priority, has risked his political capital to ensure that it is not just an agenda on the manifesto, but a reality for millions of Kenyans. He is a powerful continental voice And recently, last year at the United Nations General Assembly, he was recognized by the United Nations as a global champion for affordable housing for all. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for His Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, as he comes to the stage. Another big round of applause for His Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency. Vivian Onano. Thank you, Your Excellency. Oh, you may be seated. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, for joining us today. Mr. President, our session is really designed as a conversation, weaving together leadership and delivery, financing realities, global systems, and continental commitment. So without further ado, I'll dive into my first question. Africa's urban population is growing faster than infrastructure delivery, with cities expanding at over 3.5% annually. Under your leadership, Kenya has positioned housing at the center of its development agenda, recognizing as both a social and economic priority. In the next 2 to 3 months, your administration will have completed over 273,000 housing units, with another 500,000 planned for development, with over 640,000 direct jobs created. This is Africa's largest affordable housing program. Mr. President, this is bold leadership, and we would like to understand how you made this happen. What did it take to move housing from political commitment to a fully functioning economic system that delivers at scale? And what are some of the bottlenecks that you have had to intervene on to ensure affordable housing remains a national priority, Mr. President?
Thank you very much, Vivian. And welcome colleagues and friends from across our continent to Kenya. The conversation that you want to engage me in is a conversation that is very close to my heart. Affordable housing is not just about houses. It's about people. It's about dignity. It's about jobs. It's about careers. It is about business and much more. And you have asked me a fundamental question that how did we move this from manifesto, from documents, from ideas into reality? And I have only one answer. It takes leadership. That's it. And we have had this in our plans as a country in many administrations. We've had it in many manifestos. We've designed how it can be done. But until you find the leadership that has the courage to translate it into reality, it will remain aspiration, it will remain talk, it will remain documents, it will remain campaign promises. And one more thing, you cannot undertake such a fundamental and consequential undertaking if you are focusing on the next election. It has to take a longer term focus in the next generation. That's what it takes. If you focus in the next election, you will not do it because it is difficult. It requires heavy political capital. It requires mobilizing resources, how to finance it. And that is why today, as I sit here with 273,000 170,000 houses being built across the breadth of Kenya. In every large township in the Republic of Kenya, we have 200 active sites in every part of the Republic of Kenya. Yesterday, I was in one of our counties in Olkalau. The affordable housing in Olkalau is ready. In fact, we're going to hand over the keys. CS Alice Wahome has been with me. She has taken me to every place in Kenya because of affordable housing. So let me just say this, that affordable housing will happen if you have the ultimate political leadership. It cannot be done at the ministry. It cannot be done at another level. It has to take the political leadership at the highest level to drive it. Number two, you have to find ways of mobilizing resources. In Kenya, we decided that we are going to mobilize resources locally. The houses we have built in Kenya, maybe ministers sitting here, and I want to say this is a very important forum. We have close to 40 countries represented here at ministerial level, because housing is such an important topic for any government, because the world is urbanizing. You've just given us the statistics. We have 700 million people today in our continent living in urban settlements. For us in Kenya, we have 7 million people living in informal settlements. We have 1,140 odd informal settlements around the country. And in fact, strangely, a few years ago in Kenya, when visitors used to come to Kenya, I don't know how this happened, that we used to be proud of, okay, take this visitor to go and see the largest slum in our region. You know? So you take your visitor to go and see Kibera, the largest slum in our region, to go and see squalor and poverty and filth, and, you know, which is not the right thing to do. Not to deny that this exists. Yes, it does. But somebody has to do something about it. Today, I can proudly say, when these ministers leave these rooms, they will be taken to see how we are transforming those informal settlements into decent living houses for the people of Kenya. And the houses we have built, we have not borrowed money from the World Bank. We have not borrowed money from anywhere. We built these houses using our own resources. Wow. I bet you, today we have signed $4 billion of housing contracts. That is an equivalent of 650 billion Kenya shillings. If I were to look for $4 billion from wherever, it would take me maybe 10 years of going to this town and the other town and seeing this person and the other person and signing this paper and signing another one. So I decided that we are going to have a conversation with the people of Kenya. And difficult conversation, that we have a situation, we need to fix it. And as was described by the governor of Nairobi, it wasn't an easy conversation, because change has a price. Unfortunately, status quo has also a price. And always, the price of change is lower than the price of status quo, ultimately. So we had a conversation, difficult, and I must thank our policymakers. When I went to the people of Kenya, I promised that we were going to undertake housing. And we were going to undertake housing because of 4 reasons. I explained myself to the people of Kenya. The people of Kenya trusted me with their vote. When I came to office, I asked my team that we had been elected with, that now it's time to implement what we promised the people of Kenya. And many members of parliament who are my friends told me, Mr. President, we cannot do this. This is difficult. This housing levy is difficult. But I told them, so are you telling me that we told the people of Kenya what we had no intention? In fact, I remember asking some of them who are my friends, I told them, when you had me on the platform telling the people of Kenya, we are going to build houses, their children are going to get jobs, we're going to move them away from slums, what was going on in your mind? How did you think that we are going to do this? And I want to thank our parliamentary group that when I explained to them that this was not something we are going to bargain with, they agreed with me. They passed the necessary legislation. We went through difficult times, but today we can proudly say as a people and as a nation that we are doing some of the most consequential things. And this is very emotional. Why? You haven't seen the kind of impact that this has on real people. When I went to move the first batch of people who are living in a slum, right here in Nairobi called Mukuru, a place where there is no toilet, a place where there is no road, there is no water, there is no electricity. For you to use the toilet, you have to pay. For them to move from that state to 10th floor of a building that has water, that has piped gas, that has electricity, that has a lift, that has a playground, that has a school, that has a hospital, that has street lighting. You don't know the kind of impact you make to those kind of people. So, this is not just about houses. As I told you, it's about people's careers. In January this year, we brought on board about 6,000 interns. You know, apart from 600,000 people working, who were not working 3 years ago. Architects, engineers, plumbers, quantity surveyors, carpenters, a whole array, realtors, painters, people who have gone to college. We're talking about graduates from our technical training colleges. Certificate, people who have a certificate in electrical, in being an electrician, people who have degrees in architecture. These are real people with real careers to pursue. Today they have a chance to pursue their careers. Today, because of the housing program, we have industries that have come on stream. We have people who have been Juakali artisans, small enterprises. Today they are transitioning from being ad hoc. You know, you make one window today, you make another window after 2 months, you make another window after 10 months. Today, they have contracts. In fact, we ring-fenced close to 15 billion Kenya shillings for people who were informal. Today, we are formalizing their business. We've had more steel companies come on stream. We've had more cement factories come on board. We've had many more people coming on stream in the space around making construction equipment, making inquiries in transport industry. More transporters are coming on board. So we have built a whole construction industry around housing. What is more, we are slowly rolling back land fragmentation. We are slowly influencing land that was meant for agricultural activity. We are now reserving it for agricultural productivity and food security instead of it being subdivided for informal settlement. So it hasn't taken a person, it has taken a whole Kenyan society, because the executive has been in, Alice and myself and the team. People in the legislature have done their part. The people of Kenya are the biggest contributors to this success. Why? Because they put in their taxes. And we are making the change together. Yeah. And that is why I am very proud to address this audience and to share our experience as a nation, which I believe is what other countries are doing. Maybe they are doing it differently, but we can share in this experience. Finally, you've asked me, what are the challenges? Yes. The challenges have been, the change. Changing a situation is not an easy thing. Mm-hmm. So we've had political pushback. We still have politicians who still think you can make populist, we are going to stop this housing because we are protecting the pay slips of people. Such pedestrian talk. Mm-hmm. How do you cannot see the 640,000 people working. You don't know what to do with them. I know many ministers here are wondering whether there are still people who are opposing this in Kenya. Yes, they are there, and they are not few. There are many. Many politicians still climb to podia to talk about how they want to stop this. How you want to stop such transformation is mind-boggling, right? Mm-hmm. We still have courts. We've gone through difficult challenges in courts. People who go to court, they want to stop this. In fact, many of them are asking me, who told you we need houses? Others are saying, why are you taking government land, building houses, and then giving it to individuals? The same people don't mind if the same government land, people invade, they settle, it becomes an informal settlement. They don't mind it. But they mind it if we use it and build affordable housing, make decent use of it. Then you ask yourself, those are the kind of challenges we have to deal with. They look mundane, they don't look very intelligent, but they are there. And we have to confront them every day. Sometimes they come from people who you think should know more, I remember telling one of my friends who was opposed to this housing, and I was asking them, my friend, in your house, you possibly have 3 or 4 toilets. One in your bedroom, one somewhere, another one somewhere. There are people who don't have a toilet. They have to pay to use a toilet. That is the conversation we're having. It is as basic as that. So if you don't see the value of a social house or an affordable house, there are people who desperately need it because at the very least, they need a toilet of their own. That's how basic it is. And finally, let me say this. It is about dignity, giving people dignity. It is about getting another group of people to own something. Today, in a social house, for as less as $30 a month, you become a homeowner. That would not happen under any other circumstance. It would not happen. If we left this to the private sector, the private sector builds for those who can afford, not those who need. Government must think about the people who need the houses. And that is why policy becomes central to the delivery of housing. Sorry I've taken long.
No, Mr. President, this is fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from His Excellency. This is bold, transformative, and courageous leadership in practice. Mr. President, thank you for bringing the human face to the affordable housing agenda. It's very important for us to see it's not just about housing, as you've said, but it's about dignity, and it's about the people. Mr. President, we have other leaders in the audience that would like to also bring into this conversation and hear from them. My first question I'd like to pose to Her Excellency Ana Claudia Rosbach, UN Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Habitat. Madam Executive Director, when you talk about the future of Africa, and are governments investing enough in secondary cities as the next frontier for affordable housing, or are we still over-concentrating resources in primary urban centers? Madam Secretary.
Thank you so much. First of all, I really would like to appreciate Mr. Excellency President Ruto for your honesty and transparency. Indeed, housing is complex, and without top leadership, as you said, Minister, it's very difficult to accomplish because there are so many factors involved. But President spoke about the hundreds of millions that are coming to urban settings in Africa. And I spoke about the rural-urban, but also the migration among cities. And our data shows that the growth is actually happening in intermediary city. But if we look at metropolitan areas, the pressure is very, very, very high. At the front line, as you all mentioned, and as we are discussing at this forum, is housing. Because we cannot think about people coming to cities and not having housing. As the President said, the markets are limited. Right now in Africa, I would say 10% is the outreach of the market. Just because the incomes of the people are this low and the prices of their houses are this low. And somebody needs to fix that. So you putting public land into housing helps to cover the gap. You find the finance, and very well highlighted, the domestic finance, because this money is not out there available, is critical to cover this affordability gap. So the city planning, the role of the local authorities, of the mayors, of the governors is critical, because if we don't line up these actions, the money, the regulations, you mentioned a law, you changed the law that comes from the national level, the programs that comes and the planning that comes from the national level. If we don't line up with what's being done at the local level, if the governors, if the mayors, they don't plan for this growth, then it's going to be sustainable. So you need to build the houses, but you need to be conscious that where you build and how you build make a difference. And here I would like to call attention for the densification of the housing program, because indeed, we cannot continue urban sprawl. This is affecting food security, this is affecting our natural resources. So this is also, you mentioned, Mr. President, about a social pact that you did with the Society of Kenya, but this needs to be replicated at the local level. Because if you don't agree with the society, how the city is going to grow up and to the side, and for whom, then it's not feasible. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Executive Director, for reinforcing the importance of...
Can you allow me just to backstop what she has said? It is very fundamental that governments at all levels are aligned. I must commend the leadership of Professor Anyang' Nyong'o in the Council of Governors, because it wasn't going to be possible for us to roll out this in a very short time if we didn't have the partnership of our county governments. Today, approvals for houses take the shortest time possible because we have standardized many things, and we have agreed with the county governments that whether it is national government land or county government land, this is land that belongs to the people of Kenya. There are no national government people, there are no county government people, we only have the people of Kenya. And it has been of immense, assistance that we have aligned ourselves, underlined the program with our county governments. And secondly, on the issue of infrastructure, because part of what we put into legislation is that apart from building the houses, water, sewage, roads that make it possible for citizens to access this affordable housing is part of the development of the housing. So that's not just about houses, it's about how those houses are going to be livable. And finally, is densification. She said a very important thing. We started with ground plus 4. We went to ground plus 9. We realized that was not enough. We went to ground plus 24. We are now getting even higher because you cannot continue to have what she called sprawling cities because land is finite. You can only have so much land. But populations are increasing. You need more land to produce food and less land for housing. So you need to go vertical. And I think that is what we have learned in the short time we were here. I remember with my team, led by Alice and my good friend Charles, we had to rethink and redesign the whole thing because we realized that it wasn't tenable for us to do ground plus 4 for especially big cities because land is finite and it's expensive.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. And now that you're talking about county governments, recently we witnessed the signing of a new partnership agreement between the national government and the Nairobi City County government. This is not the first time such an arrangement has been pursued. We previously saw a similar model that led to the establishment of the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. This partnership has sparked an important debate. Some argue that such partnerships risk undermining the gains of devolution, while others contend that Nairobi, given its role as the nation's capital, economic hub, and diplomatic center, requires a unique governance approach. Mr. President, what distinguishes this new partnership from the previous arrangements? And most importantly, what tangible outcomes should Kenyans expect to see as a result of this new renewed collaboration?
There's a world of a difference between the partnership under NMS and the partnership we have today with the county government of Nairobi. Under the previous arrangement, it was a transfer of functions. We are not undertaking any transfer of functions. We are working in partnership with the Nairobi City County because Nairobi City County is also the capital city of the Republic of Kenya. And the law outrightly states that the Nairobi City County needs to have a special arrangement with the national government because Nairobi City County also is the seat of the government of Kenya. And therefore, we've undertaken this agreement, and for the first time, a president in Kenya is going to address the assembly of a county, and I will be doing it today at 2:30 p.m. Because that partnership is important. We've agreed on the parameters that need to be undertaken, on making sure that the city is clean, on making sure that the city is lit, on making sure that the city is motorable. So we have agreed on which is not the subject of this meeting. We have agreed on what we are going to do with the Nairobi City County. And I am very happy and I'm very proud that we have this agreement. It is not about the president, it's not about the governor, it's about the people of this city, and it's about the capital city of the Republic of Kenya. So that is the agreement we have signed. It is not undermining devolution. In fact, we will be empowering the city of Nairobi to do more and to get it better for the residents and for the Republic of Kenya. Because if Nairobi, many people, these great people who have come here, if they go back home, they will tell you, we went to Kenya. But actually they came to Nairobi. So Nairobi must present the right face of Kenya. So that is what we are trying to achieve.
Thank you, Your Excellency. So yeah, we've heard from His Excellency on bold leadership, courageous leadership to get this big, audacious initiative going. But Mr. President, we also need money to ensure that we deliver at scale. So to respond to this question, I'd like to speak to Mr. Abbas Jar, Practice Manager, Urban Development and Disaster Risk Management, Eastern and Southern Africa at the World Bank. Mr. Jar, policy sets direction, but financing determines whether we arrive. Financing remains critical on both the demand and supply sides. Despite over $400 trillion in global capital, African cities remain underfinanced due to perceived risk, weak project pipelines, and limited creditworthiness. Mortgage penetration remains below 10% in most African countries, largely due to income informality. What is preventing private capital, particularly African capital, from flowing into housing and urban infrastructure? And what would a fully functional housing finance ecosystem look like?
Thank you, Vivian. I think one of the advantages of coming towards the end is that everything that needs to be said has already been said. So I can just pick on the points previous speakers made. I want to begin by really commending His Excellency President Ruto's leadership on housing. And what I really appreciate at a personal level is the way you link housing to jobs and dignity. I think one thing, the Cabinet Secretary made a very good point, which is that cities are not just where jobs are created, it's how jobs are created. And that is something that is really, really important. If you think about cities and towns, they are places where people connect with other people across space and time to create value. And once you start thinking of a city or a town like that, everything else falls in place. And housing is one of the parts of that puzzle. So let me just start with a couple of numbers that are so sobering that it makes you pause. So in the 3 days that we have the Africa Urban Forum, 120,000 Africans will have moved from rural areas to cities. If we don't get this housing part right, 12 million Africans will live in informal settlements in precisely the substandard existence that the president mentioned, with the lack of dignity, with the lack of basic services. So we have to get this right. We cannot afford to not get it right. To come to your question, Vivian, what will it take? I think it will take three things. And the president has already mentioned a few of those. First, fix the land, fix the street, fix the sewage and the water before you put the housing in. That is super critical. And we have examples in Kenya, Dandora, we have examples in Angola, we have examples in Cote d'Ivoire, of sites and services, which precisely does this. You put in the trunk infrastructure before the housing is built, so that you ensure that the private sector can come in a meaningful way. That's number one. But second is that often we think of the housing finance market as one market. It's actually 5 markets. If you think about it, when you start from the bottom, say the bottom 20%, they cannot afford a mortgage. They'll never be able to afford a mortgage. Then you have to think about things like targeted subsidies, sites and services, things like that. When you look at the middle of the market, there are things like, for example, 70% of housing in Africa is self-financed and incrementally. So people don't build a house at one go, they'll build step by step. So you need to match the finance with that and with their ability to pay. And then at the top of the market, you have the mortgages. And then there are things that you can do to improve the functioning of that market. But always remember that the housing finance market is actually several markets, and you need instruments for each of those markets. And the third point that I would say to get private capital in is something that Ana Claudia also mentioned, is that you need to link transport corridors, density, flood zones. You need to demarcate which parts of the towns and the cities are no-build zones, so that the poor don't settle in these hazardous places. And by the way, now high-resolution satellite imagery gives us the ability to pinpoint precisely which are the areas that are going to flood, which should not be built up. I live in Nairobi. I love the city, but we saw flooding last month due to the heavy rains. So there are parts of cities and towns that should not ever be built up, and you can use technology now to do that very cost-effective. So I would say these are the 3 things we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abbas. Your Excellency, I would like to come to you on the same topic. So recently, we saw the launch of the National Infrastructure Fund, alongside a number of innovative financing mechanisms, such as the securitization of the fuel levy to support road infrastructure, and the sports levy financing flagship projects like Talanta Stadiums and the many stadiums that you're building across the country. Does this signal a deliberate shift towards more innovative financing models, moving beyond traditional reliance on debt and taxation, both of which have clear limits, we know that? And secondly, with the National Infrastructure Fund now in place, should Kenyans expect to see accelerated investment in critical urban infrastructure, particularly in areas such as clean water and sanitation, drainage and sewer systems, and universal access to electricity?
Thank you very much. Allow me just to mention something that my friend from the World Bank has said, which is fundamental. And we've learned this in the process, that housing market is not one. It's in several, categories. Right at the bottom, we have social housing. These are people who cannot, they are actually the most, they need the houses the most, but they have the least ability. So you have to balance that. They need the houses the most, and yet they have the least ability to own the houses. So this is where, for example, for us as a government, we've done 2 things. Number one, we are building 20% of all these houses as social houses. We've made it deliberate that we have a category for social houses. Number 2, We have also removed the requirement that you need a deposit to move into the house. Because sometimes if you introduce a deposit, it becomes very difficult for people in that category to access the houses. And number 3, we have made their mortgage interest the lowest. We are actually subsidizing as government at 3%. Then the people in the affordable housing is at 6%. And then the people who can afford what we are calling the market houses is at 9%. So I agree with the World Bank representative here that we have to be sensitive to the market so that we do not, in the process, lock out the people who need the houses the most. One more thing on the subject he raised was how do we raise money? You know, and that's the question you are asking me. We can stretch taxes so far. We can stretch debt so far. For us in Kenya, we have said we will be very, very careful on matters to do with stretching taxes or stretching debt, because both have consequences. And therefore, it requires government to think, you know, outside the box and become more innovative. How do we leverage on instruments that can be used for the development of a nation that limits or that reduces our exposure to debt or pushing citizens for taxes? And we have discovered some of them. You know, we have assets that we can deploy in a better way. Let me give you an example. You've just mentioned there about a big stadium we have built. In fact, we are using what we call the sports fund, which is a fund that has been there now, I think, for 10, 15 years. For 10, 15 years, this fund has not achieved much, except do a gate somewhere, do cabro someplace, you know, a small thing somewhere. What we have done is that we have turned that fund into using leveraging on the capital markets through securitization. That fund is now building for us the largest stadium in Nairobi, which is going to host AFCON next year, about $300 million. And another almost $200 million to build another 20 stadia across Kenya. Because sports, Kenya is a sporting nation. Yep. So many people are asking me, but where has this money come from? Have you gone to borrow more money? What have you done? So, innovative financing. Let me give you another example before we go to your question. We are building another huge conference facility. In fact, the next time these good people come to Kenya from August this year, they will be having this session or whatever session they will be coming in Bomas of Kenya. We're building another close to 350 million conference facility. Again, we haven't borrowed any money from nobody. We've used our own instruments that have always been there. The tourism levy, which has been there now for 20 years. And if you ask, what has this tourism levy done in 20 years? Nobody can point to any meaningful thing that it has done. Today, we are completing a $350 million conference facility that is going to, using the private sector, we're going to have 1,500 bed, 3 hotels, 5-star, you know? So this is innovation. It's not, we're not adding any more taxes. We're not borrowing any more money. We're just leveraging on the assets that we have. And you have mentioned the National Infrastructure Fund. This is part of the thinking that we have gone into. It is in our manifesto. When we wrote it into the manifesto 3 years ago, many people did not believe it's going to come to be. I did sign the law a month ago. I think today or tomorrow we are advertising for competitively for a board to run it. We have the first $800 million into that fund that came from our IPO privatization of Kenya Pipeline. God willing, we will have another $2 billion into that fund in a short while as we undertake raising money using our mature assets as a nation. And I want to tell this audience, as I tell the people of Kenya, the National Infrastructure Fund, yes, is going to deliver more infrastructure projects to the people of Kenya without pushing them for more taxes or without going into borrowing. And one of them that is going to happen in 2 months' time is the construction of the international airport in Nairobi. The National Infrastructure Fund is going to be the fund that is going to help us, provide our part of our equity. And we don't have to, it's going to be $1.5 billion facility, but we will be putting a fraction of it just to de-risk the process. And then the rest of the money, the private sector will come in through public-private partnership. We're going to work with the concessionaires, and we're going to build the airport using a small fraction of the National Infrastructure Fund. We already have 15 mega dams that are going to benefit from this fund. And I did make a commitment to the people of Kenya that any money that we raise from privatization, that we raise from mature assets of the nation, will be put in this fund. It will not be used to pay salary. It will not be used to pay debt. It is going to be used to develop infrastructure so that we replace one piece of infrastructure with 2, 3, 4, 5 others. That is how we intend to drive this into the future.
Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you were still asking yourself, how is His Excellency the global champion for affordable housing for all, you've heard it from him. It's not just about the political will, it's not just about the bold leadership, but he also knows how to get the resources that's needed to make these ideas a reality. A big round of applause to His Excellency. No, just one more. And now I'll turn to His Excellency Moses Vilakati, African Union Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy, and Sustainable Environment. Your Excellency, in your speech, you have emphasized that the Nairobi Declaration must move beyond aspirations to clear commitments and measurable actions. What specific accountability mechanisms will the African Union put in place to ensure that member states actually deliver on affordable housing targets, particularly for low-income and informal settlement populations? Your Excellency.
This is a mammoth task, but it's doable. Thank you, Your Excellency, for this elaborate and eloquent presentation, because it shows that it is doable. Now, here, Your Excellency, there's going to be a declaration termed Nairobi Declaration. As the AUC, we are proud that we'll be part of that journey. And once that declaration is there, it is then taken to the Assembly. I can assure you, Your Excellency, that in February next year, it will be there so that your colleagues, heads of states and government, can then endorse it for implementation, because our process always starts from there. That heads of states, governments have seen the document, they've looked at it, they edit it, they delete certain things, they add other things, because that is how it's supposed to be. And then after that, then we unpack it to come up with what are called action plans that obtains from the declaration. So that's why it is very key that we have things that can be actionable for purposes of moving forward. Now, then once we have those action plans, the member states then adopt it, they take it forward, they take some of these ideas that are coming from here and start saying, what is it that we can do? How I wish His Excellency the President would then address these member states to say, this is how I've done it. This is how I've changed slums. As the champion, I think we'll have to try and see how he comes into that program so that he can be able to elaborate, because hearing from somebody who has done it is like seeing, and I'm sure other countries can then take it from there. So that is then the actionable plans. Once we have those actionable plans, then now they are assimilated or taken over by the member states. So every 2 years, this forum meets. That is where then we come up with what we term biennial reviews. Because now we have to say, this is where we were. Where are you in as far as this process of ensuring that we no longer have slums? We have resilient infrastructure. We have got water for our cities. So that is what the AUC is good at, because the AUC has a convening power which can bring all of these under one roof. But there's one thing. The heads of states, including His Excellency, have told us clearly, you cannot force us. You just have to make sure that we take it forward so that each member state can decide. But then with the biennial review, you are then able to measure and assess who is able to move forward, who can do it. But the second aspect is the one related to financing. But it's exciting with what His Excellency is coming up with. Use your own resources. Gone are the days when we'll be looking outside of our borders due to the geopolitics that is obtaining, and I like this model that he has applied, because now we can talk about financing from internal resources, because they are there in the pension funds, in whatever, in the financial institutions, in the private sector, to make sure that we can move forward. Those are some of the things that we'll then be able to measure so that we can start seeing who is moving forward and who is not moving forward. We usually then come up with awards so that as the countries exchange ideas, we now look at those who are moving even better, including the cities. Those are some of the things that we now need to put into the review mechanism so that countries are accountable. I present, Your Excellency.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Mr. President, I feel like more work is being added to you to continue being a continental voice and champion, and also showcasing Kenya's model to other member states so that they can learn from the great work that you're doing here in the country. Your Excellency, my next question is actually my favorite question. I'll be very honest with you. You have been a strong champion for youth inclusion and consistently advocated for the meaningful participation of young people across your administration. Today we have young people in this room and many joining us virtually. What urban future must we build for our young people, and what role must they play in shaping it?
You know, it's a very important question. You've said it, and I share in your perspective that we have a youthful population in our continent, and of course in Kenya. And whatever it is that we are doing, they must be front and center of it. Housing is about young people. The people coming to work in these housing projects, I can tell you, 70% are young people. I told you in January, we had a meeting with graduates from our universities and our TVETs, young people beaming with, energy and hope. And we brought them into the equation as interns. And I remember when I was talking to them, I was telling them, ordinarily when you go for internship, you pay for it in some areas. But this time around, government is going to pay you to be an intern. And I also told them this internship could actually become an interview, depending on how you display your capabilities. And there were 6,000 graduates from universities, from TVETs. How this is going to turn into a job for you, because we have onboarded how many consulting firms, my friend, consulting firms? Over 350 consulting firms in our housing ecosystem. And these are opportunities for working with these consultants. If you're good, you will finally be absorbed in these consulting firms. So it's about young people and opportunities. Secondly, I've had occasion to go hand over keys to beneficiaries of affordable housing. You can never believe the faces of young graduates, people who've gotten a job a year or two ago, and they get a key to own a home. It's just life-changing, So this is about young people, their careers, their future, being able to lead, to move from, an informal settlement into a home that you will own. And we are also making it easier for young people to own these houses. In fact, we will be going back to Parliament to fine-tune the law so that we can reduce the bar for young people to own houses. So this is a whole of society approach. Finally, let me say this as a leader and as a policymaker. It carries a lot of momentum if the people come along, if the people understand. So even as we make the case, I am very happy that it may have been difficult initially, but today I will give you two examples. A week ago, we have a big market, possibly the largest market in Kenya, in a place called Gikomba. I think there are close to 200,000 people in that market every week there, selling, buying, and doing stuff. People from different parts of Kenya come to that market to buy for them to go and sell in other markets. And we wanted to transform Gikomba. In fact, the leadership of that market came to see me. And I had a good conversation with them, and we told them, look, and they told me, Mr. President, we are trading in filth. If it rains, you have to put on gumboots. If it rains, nobody shows up because nobody wants to come into a place where the river has overflown, come with sewage, and flooded the trading space. So, first things first, we said we are going to fix the river. Then when I had a conversation with them, I told them we're going to fix the market because this is an informal market. So we did the designs, we worked with the county government, we worked with the leadership of the market, and they told us we're ready to move. We're going to leave this space for you to build for us. Voluntarily. Yeah? When the traders moved, entrepreneurs, people who are looking for money, moved in and said, oh no, we are the owners of this place, We told them, no, We know who the traders are. You get the hell out. So, you cannot believe this. So some people chasing popularity went and had a big meeting to say, oh, the government, why does the government want to remove these people? You know, blah, blah, blah. The traders themselves told those people, we decided that we are going to move because we want a modern market to be built for us. And by the way, we're going to build that market in a record 6 months.
Wow.
We will have a 3-floor market in that space. And those traders believe us because we have done it elsewhere. They have seen us build markets. And they believe us because we are redeeming them from filth and dirt and sewer. But those fellows who went there to try and tell them not to move, they don't even buy anything from that Kikomba. They go to Yaya Center. When they finish the meeting, they will not go and buy nothing from there. They will go to Yaya Center, they will go to Sarit Center, they will go to the modern markets, but they want these people to continue trading in filth. How stupid can that be? You know? So, that's just an example of how citizens can be part of the transformation. They are the ones saying, no, we want the market built. We are the traders here, we are moving out to give room for government to do the market for us. I'll give you another example. Yesterday, in Nairobi, in Kibra, citizens, you know, we did the first phase of the first 4,000 housing units. We're now doing another 15,000 units, and citizens have to move to give room for us to build for them. Citizens were moving themselves. In fact, we had an accident yesterday. We lost 4 people because in the process of them pulling down their own, you know, structures, there was an accident. But what encouraged me is that the people themselves are pulling down the informal structures to live, so that to give room for us to build for them houses. In the past, they would be resisting that we do not want to move. That is how, when citizens come on board, things become even easier. And this time around, those fellows who went, the politicians who tried to go there, they didn't go to Kibera because they now realized that the conversation has changed, that the people now know what they want, and they will not entertain any cheap stories. I would encourage us, as we drive this, it is very important that we onboard citizens so that they can help us make the difficult decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, please give a big round of applause to His Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, and all our additional speakers. Africa does not lack ideas. Africa does not lack ambition. What we must now confront is delivery. Housing is not a sector. It is a system through which we build our economies and our future. If we get housing right, we unlock jobs, productivity, and dignity. We have heard today from leaders who are not only advancing this agenda through policy and political will, but also through financing and implementation. And while progress is being made, there's still much work to be done here in Kenya and across the continent. I would like to close with a powerful message delivered a few months ago by Your Excellency at the new Mukuru Housing Estate handover ceremony, and I quote, "Today, we are giving you keys, not just to open a door, not just to open a house, but to open a home, to welcome you into dignity, into a different life." And that is the commitment I made to the people of Kenya. End of quote. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what affordable housing is about. At its core, dignity for all. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause to His Excellency, President William Samoei Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, for his bold and transformative leadership and for walking the talk when it comes to affordable housing for all. Asante sana, Mr. President. God bless Kenya. Thank you.
Come on, ladies and gentlemen, let's put another warm clap for His Excellency, together with the moderator, Vivian Onano. As we take our seats with utmost respect and honor, Your Excellency, allow me to invite you to make whatever remarks you may make and also to officially declare the meeting open. Why don't we put our hands together as we welcome His Excellency to just declare the meeting open.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have nothing useful to add. This forum is officially open. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, so that you don't sit and come back, allow me to have you on stage. Let's take our seats briefly. There is also the launch of a report, and the AU would like to hand this over to you, so if we can have the booklets to kindly be brought forward. And as we do that, allow me to invite Ms. Anne-Claudia Rosbach and Moses Valcati to also be part of this session. If we can kindly have the booklets for AU to hand over to His Excellency, the President, before we proceed for a photo. The photo will be taken to my left, which is your right, shortly after this have been handed over. Vilcati to also join in this as we hand over the booklets to His Excellency. A round of applause for the report. Then I'll request that you just hand, yes, hold the copies. Wonderful, wonderful. If I can get a thumbs up once the photographers, we are done. I think we are good. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Excellency. You may retreat to your seat. I'll now request that we all be upstanding. We're going to wind up with a prayer, and the prayer is the national anthem. After which, we're going to have a photo session, and it's one photo which will be taken right there. Only ministers and heads of delegation, kindly, and the rest of us will remain in our positions. For now, the national anthem. So I'll request that we allow His Excellency to proceed to the photo session area and be joined by ministers and heads of delegation only, kindly, for the photo. That, of course, includes our CS and PSs present. So kindly, as we